Welcome to Inside Boxing Daily on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by MyBookie.ag, where you get up to a free $1,000 cash bonus if you go through the Grueling Truth website. Click on the banner at thegruelingtruth.net for MyBookie.ag. Sign up that way, or you can use promo code TGT50 on MyBookie.ag. So if you put in $2,000, they'll give you a free $1,000 to play with. So it's a 50% cash bonus up to $1,000. Also, the Retired Boxers Foundation with Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos. Make sure you go check them out on Facebook. And Seat Giant, where you can go to SeatGiant.com and use the promo code LEGEND to get a discount. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. And right now I'd like to welcome in my other co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm always good when I get to talk boxing, Mike. Hey, I had a quick question. Did Seat Giant, were they passing out tickets for Garcia Spence?
I don't know, but they will be tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, well, if you guys plan on going to that fight in Dallas, you go there and get your tickets now.
Yeah, and put in a promo code LEGEND to get a little bit of a discount and also to help us out. And make sure that you give us any kind of likes. You can also go to Spreaker right now, the Grueling Truth Sports Network or Grueling Truth Radio Network. I forget what we're on there. But put in the Grueling Truth. You can find us. You can send any questions through Spreaker. You can also send us questions at TGTN Boxing or at the Grueling Truth. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a pay-per-view where at least the main event, I think, is a compelling fight. The undercard, maybe not so much, but what do you expect? At least we got a good main event this time. So when we look at this, we're going to start with Charles Martin, former heavyweight champion of the world, and I use quotation marks when I say that, against Gregory Corbin. What's your take on Charles Martin, Gregory Corbin?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm flustered after listening to Charles Martin and heavyweight champion of the world in the same
I put
sentence.
quotation marks around it. Damn.
I know, man. It still just makes me perspirate. I'm just like, God.
You know the interesting thing about this, because just for the hell of it, I wanted to see what would happen. Charles Martin's supposed to be the former heavyweight champion of the world. So in a Google search engine, I put in Charles Martin. And you know what comes up first?
I don't know, him smoking weed?
Charles Martin official site. The only problem is it's charlesmartinbooks.com. So, even though Charles Martin was supposedly a former heavyweight champion of the world, there is a book writer named Charles Martin who comes up first. Second is Charles Martin, the old Green Bay Packer who body slammed Jim McMahon on Monday Night Football in 1986. And then finally, on the third try, you get Box Rec Charles Martin. And he's got dreadlocks, which that's cool. But outside of that, I don't see much cool about him or this fight, Jeremiah. I mean, he did look a lot better against Adam Konatsky. But I think Konatsky's the kind of guy that everybody will look good at as long as you come and you want to fight, which is the good thing. He did come, and he came, and he wanted to fight. But
he came.
Yeah, he came. He saw, got his ass kicked, but it was closer than people thought, so we'll give him a break there. And if you look before that, he had beaten Michael Marone, who was 21-7, Byron Poley, who was 30-20, and of course his epic Titanic heavyweight battle with Anthony Joshua, and then the fight with Glazkov, which I don't think he wins unless there's an injury. But if you look at the rest of Martin's career, his first 20, 25 fights or so, first 20 fights, basically look like the guys that Deontay Wilder fought when he went to get his heavyweight title.
Yeah, well, Martin was, he's an American, so they wanted to, he's under PBC and they wanted to get him an alphabet trinket too. And hey, mission accomplished. But, this fight to me doesn't signify much more than Charles Martin getting a fairly soft touch. And, they're probably, because he showed a lot more heart than a lot of us thought that he had, especially after that long layoff. He showed some entertainment in his style. Yet I think they're just going to, put him in against somebody that would, give us some entertainment value, just like the Konaki fight. But this fight, I actually think would have been okay if they would have thrown Martin in against Chris Arreola. I would have, I would have just found that just a touch more interesting than the
Yeah.
guy they got him in against. I mean, you got two guys who
Wait
are,
a second. Wait a second. I got to tell you, I don't mean to interrupt you because I
Yeah.
usually don't. I let you talk because you know what you're talking about. But Gregory Corbin, I'm just for the hell of it. I put on his record, and if you look at his record, I mean, you got to take him seriously because he beat Andrew Greerly twice by unanimous decision. And Greerly is 14-45. The first time they fought, it was at Beamer's nightclub in Dallas. The second time, it was at Gillies in Dallas. And when you look at this, a little while later, he fought Roberto Santos in 2016. That was at the Gas Monkey Bar and Grill. So, I mean, you really got to take a guy seriously if he's fought at, Gillies in Dallas. But then when you fight at the Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, I think that is where the Joshua Wilder fights were supposed to be if Wilder would have taken the money.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's big time, man. Well, actually, while you're sitting there rattling off these fantastic wins that the guy holds, I went on BoxRec real quick and looked at his record. Holy crap, dude! This guy's fought he's beaten two guys who have winning records. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think that bodes well for his chances. But again, man, they should have just thrown him in against Chris.
Wait a second, because he beat two guys in their first fights too. So there's also, you can look at it like this. He's beaten two guys with winning records, but he's also beaten two guys that were undefeated.
See, the odds are getting closer. The odds are I can feel it. I can smell it from here. Though.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. I mean, the guy's a stud.
Yeah,
I mean, and he's only 38, so he's in the prime of his career.
Yeah, like most heavyweights. Most heavyweights peak at about 30, 38.
Well, I'm telling you this. I'm thinking about making, maybe getting in shape and seeing if I could be a heavyweight boxer because Gregory Corbin, with the record we just told you on BoxRec, ranks 48 out of 354 American heavyweights. So that means, by my calculations, there's 306 guys worse than him.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, actually. I mean, if anybody watched, something like Friday Night Fights or Tuesday Night Fights for many years, dude, there are all sorts of part-time guys doing this. They're like auto mechanics in their day job and, beating guys up in tough man competitions by night or, fighting in tough man competitions, not necessarily beating each other up. Hell, I remember when they used to run that on TV, but, my guess is Charles Martin is probably, one of those guys. I mean, dude, again, this is just a setup fight. Again, the record looks flashy. It'll sound interesting when the ring announcer is rattling it off. But again, this is just a setup fight. They should have given him Chris Arreola, man. That would have been at least sort of fun.
Yeah, it could have been interesting because we know Arreola, until he gets gassed in about the third or fourth round, is going to put up a fight. And I don't know who wins that fight, actually. So that'll tell you what I think of Charles Martin.
Yeah. Well, and Arreola is in against. I don't know if he's in against somebody similar or what, but it looks.
Let's go ahead and we'll look at that. He is in against Jean-Pierre Augustin, who, at least at the weigh-in today, from what I saw him, looked like he was in relatively good shape. And what the hell? All right, and this is the thing. Jean-Pierre Augustin, in his last fight, beat Humberto Soto. I'm thinking it's probably not the same one I'm thinking of, though.
I think it's his brother. I think they're relatives.
Is he? Because his brother was 10-0, but Augustin stopped him. He also, I would say that he is very similar. I would think that he might be a little bit more competition for Arreola than what Gregory Corbin is, though. But there's
I'm looking at I'm looking at his record too, and at least he's consistently fought guys who have winning records. And again, of course, a lot of these guys who pair people, they do a lot of research on these guys. So again, he's from Haiti. My guess is the competition is pretty piss poor. But like you said, man, I mean, he looks better than Charles Martin's competition, and he has a southpaw. So, in the state Arreola is in at this point, hell, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy scores a knockout.
Yeah, we need to find out the odds on that because I think Augustin could beat him from what I looked at. Because when you look at Chris Arreola, he got stopped by Deontay Wilder. That's back when Wilder was challenging himself with only the best competition. Before that, he had a no
Same
contest with Travis Kaufman. He fought a draw with Fred Cassie, beat Curtis Harper, lost to Berman Stavern. So, yeah, we need to check the odds out on that fight.
Oh yeah, well, dude, and if anybody remembers the Cassie fight, Arreola was actually losing that fight. I think that I remember that being a bad decision. So I mean, you got hell, man. If you really break this down, Arreola has probably lost every single one of his last few fights except Harper and Smith. Because the fight against Kaufman, was because he failed a drug test, and I believe he was even knocked down in that fight. But I mean, he should have lost to Cassie. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think maybe it is worth checking my bookie and seeing if maybe they do have the odds on this.
Now as we speak.
Yeah, man. Because again, with the state Arreola's in, I mean that dude's not hungry for much anymore except Taco Bell.
Let's see. Charles Martin is a minus 450. Actually, Chris Arreola is a minus 330. You could get Jean-Pierre Augustin at, it looks like a plus 270. I don't think that's a bad bet.
No, I don't think so either. And again, whoever's listening, I'm not telling you to put your money down, but just evaluating where Arreola's at in his career, and he probably should have 4 losses in his last 6 fights. He's fighting a guy who's significantly younger than Charles Martin's opponent. He's fought significantly better competition than Martin's opponent, and he's a southpaw, man. I'm trying to think of how many southpaws Arreola's fought in his career, and I don't think it really matters because I don't think he's all that good against either position. So I don't know, man. That might be worth putting some money down on.
Well, I just put $10 on it to win 27. So what the hell? That way I won't be too pissed off if I lose.
Damn it! Well, I'm going to be pissed off if I don't put any down, and he scores a knockout.
If you know how to do this, you go to thegirlytruth.net and click on the MyBookie banner to do it before you do it, and then you won't lose any money. Wink, wink.
Then we're good.
All right.
Yeah, then we're good.
Next up, we got Jalen Love versus David Benavidez. And Jalen today looked like he was ready to kick some ass, Jeremiah.
Yeah, he was getting hot like a tea kettle in there, man. It doesn't matter. I mean, Jalen Love, it's
getting hot like a tea kettle. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, come on, man. It looked like they were about to get in a fist fight before the fight, but all that's just kind of. It's all just nonsense anyways. I mean, David Benavidez knows better. He doesn't need to kick Jalen Love's ass before the fight. I mean, he knows he's going to whip it inside. I mean, I really – what are the odds on this? Because this just really seems far out there. I mean, this seems like a bona fide mismatch.
Damn it, I just went off the odds thing, but hold on. I'll get it. Jeez. See, if you just sign up, then you'd be able to know the odds whenever. You wouldn't have to harass me. And all know you're not going to bet. Of course, you could just take the money that you would spend normally on the pay-per-view and bet it on a fight.
Yeah.
Jalen Love, David Benavidez. Jalen Love is a plus 850. Benavidez is a minus 1,300.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds about right. Now, I mean, this is an ass kick, and this is actually. Besides the main event, this is the fight that I'm looking forward to most. And again, it's not a good supplement for a card like this. It's really not. I mean, this fight is a big mismatch. But I've heard Jalen Love is a nice guy, and I believe you, man. I remember when he was undefeated and coming up, and I heard good things about him. Again, I heard that he was a nice dude, and he would reply on social media if you sent him a message. And again, I'm not denying any of that. Maybe he is a nice dude. That's fine. But it's just one of those things, man. David Benavidez is arguably the best 168-pounder in the world. And again, I'm not saying, based on resume, because he doesn't have that yet. But, just going off the eye test, I think he very well could be the top dog here in the near future. He's just a guy that I like. And, Love he's just out there he's a lamb to slaughter. I mean, this is just not much of a contest. And again, I'm one of those guys who generally thinks that somebody has a shot because it is boxing. And I've seen crazy things over the years, but just in this fight here, I mean, you're talking about a David Benavidez who's coming off, a little bit of, I think, a suspension. He just comes across as hungry, and especially with all the pre-fight buildup, Jay Leon Love getting in his face and whatnot. It just seems like Love's asking for an ass kicking, and that's what's going to happen. This is a stoppage.
All right, real quick, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We will come back with our preview of the Errol Spence, Mikey Garcia fight. And also, we're going to talk a little Tyson Fury and who it looks like his next challenger, I guess you could call it, whatever. Actually, it looks to me like they're both afraid of Anthony Joshua. And then we'll do a little On This Day with Jeremiah's favorite heavyweight of all time, John Ruiz. So we'll be back in 1 minute and 12 seconds. Hi, I'm Mike Goodpaster from the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and I'm here with just one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with MyBookie.ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out MyBookie.ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on MyBookie.ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for MyBookie.ag, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit MyBookie.ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid. All right, guys, we're back on Inside Boxing Daily. I'm Mike Goodpaster with Jeremiah Preisser. We're getting ready to look at the Errol Spence, Mikey Garcia fight. So we're just going to do it this way. I'm just going to bring up a couple points for each fighter, and I'm just going to let you talk about it, Jeremiah. And when you look at this, I mean, Errol Spence right now wants to be the number one welterweight. You still got Terrence Crawford. You got Keith Thurman there. Would this fight, if he wins it, make him the number one guy in anybody's eyes? Or is there a way he could win it that would make him number one?
Yeah, well, I think if he knocks Spence out, I think he's number one. I mean,
you mean Garcia?
Yeah, Garcia. Sorry, I think it'd be hard to, deny him that top spot because this challenge is bigger than anything Lomachenko or Crawford have done. This would be I think a more significant win than. It's tough with Canelo because I do think he has the deepest resume of anybody, and even after this fight, that still might be the case. But this is just such a real challenge, and it harkens back to the old days. When lightweights would jump up to 147. They didn't have to trinket pick and.
Well, how about this though? Errol Spence. Is he the number one welterweight if he wins this fight? To me, I don't think he necessarily is. I think a lot of this has to do with how he does it. I think if he just comes out and steamrolls Garcia, I think we still have questions because it may just be because he was physically so much bigger and superior, and that was the difference. I think what makes him the number one welterweight is if he comes out and he outboxes Mikey and beats him, whether it's a knockout or not, because I think everybody agrees that at worst, Mikey Garcia is top 5 skill-wise in boxing today. Do you agree?
Yep. So
if he can come out and outbox Mikey Garcia, because to me, at a 147-pounder fighting a 135-pounder, if you come out and you just walk through him and knock him out, that just tells me maybe that was a size difference. But I think if Errol Spence, if he was to completely outbox Mikey Garcia or outbox Garcia, stop him 7th or 8th round, or win a decision 10-2, 11-1, something like that, I think that would make me consider him maybe the number one welterweight then.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think that would up his stock. I think that's a good point because like you said, it is one of those things that just about everybody. I mean, you can go to the Grueling Truth. We just did a writer's prediction thing. I mean, and the common theme is that Errol Spence is just going to be too big. And a lot of people acknowledge that Errol Spence is a really good boxer, and he's got skills and whatnot. But it would be interesting to see because a lot of people are assuming that Mikey Garcia is going to have his spots, especially early on. Garcia's the feeling generally is that Errol Spence is going to try to fill him out, and in the process, Garcia is going to be boxing. He's going to be landing some shots. Yeah, and that, again, the early part of the fight is going to be the interesting one. And then a lot of people feel as if Spence's physicality is just going to be too much. He's going to wear him down with body shots. But I do think you're right that it would up his stock if, he showed a number of wrinkles to his game. Like if he was, because what Garcia's going to do is he's really going to hone in on that right hand because that's the perceived best weapon against a southpaw. Garcia's got a really good right hand. Maybe that's what he thought he saw in one of the chinks in Errol Spence's armor. So, he's going to be targeting that punch. If Errol Spence, his defense has gotten tighter. He can slip the right hand to his left and land his own counter left hand over that, or his jab, ends up being, the main staple in the entire fight. I do think a lot of people would look at him higher because it's not as if Mikey Garcia looked like crap at 140. So this jump it shouldn't represent that much of a difference between what he had against Lipinets and what he should have here. So I think you're right, Mike. I think if, Spence shows some wrinkles to his game, he starts counterpunching him effectively, eventually he breaks him down and gets a stoppage in the mid to late rounds. Yeah, I think that reflects well on him. And when you compare him to, Terrence Crawford, because really that's all we're really talking about. I mean, Crawford and Spence are really the number one and number two guys. And so how do you compare that? I mean, how do you look at a victory, a good quality victory over Mikey Garcia? How does that stack up against Terrence Crawford's, Jeff Horn, just the work he's done there? And I think that Kell Brook combined with this win, I think that will keep his place at number one.
Well, it may also force Crawford to then maybe talk about Errol Spence, and maybe we'll get a fight at some point. The other thing is, it's not just a strength issue, but when you look at Spence, he is a big welterweight. He has a 3.5-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage over the much smaller Garcia. And I think that's going to be tough for Garcia to overcome also, and could very well be the story of the fight if Garcia can't get inside of that.
Yeah, you're right. Of course. I mean, and Errol Spence, I'm trying to think of how many southpaw jabs that Mikey Garcia has seen, too, because there's a tendency for orthodox fighters to lack, to just keep their jab in the holster whenever they're fighting a southpaw. And, they're a lot of these guys need to understand that having your jab active against a southpaw can be just as effective as it is against an orthodox fighter. I mean, really, you're trying to neutralize their game. I mean, you see a lot of guys, instead of jabbing full force or, really getting their legs into it, you'll see them, they'll play kind of patty cake with each other, where they're always trying to jockey for position and get their foot on the outside of their opponents. And that can be a bit boring to watch while they're, essentially what they're doing is trying to get on the outside and then land a straight power shot. And so that will be interesting, especially if Garcia or if, Spence can show that his jab is the better jab. And of course, pound for pound, I don't think necessarily that would mean it was the better jab, but that's what Garcia is going to do. I mean, Garcia is very, very good at jabbing, and he's very good at getting off the right hand. Those are going to be his strengths. And if Spence is somehow calculated again in taking all that away, you're going to have to credit the guy's skills. And of course, ultimately, this is going to come down to if Spence wins, of course, and it's not far-fetched to think that Garcia wins because, again, this is boxing. Anything can happen. And like you've noted, Spence is still kind of an unknown quantity here. Yeah, he has a good win against Kell Brook, and Brook was a talented guy, and it's noteworthy. But besides Kell Brook, there's not a whole lot to rest his resume on. So I'm very interested to see how this fight plays out tactically. I mean, I do kind of fall in line with the common theme here that Garcia will have his spots early, and that Spence will eventually break him down. But again, how his skill translates is going to be one of the more interesting things to watch, because I don't think it will play that well. And again, you touched on this earlier. It won't play that well if Spence ends up eating a bunch of right hands and he's out jabbed, out positioned, but he just kind of muscles his way through it, and he's able to take the punches from a smaller guy and bully him, break him down that way. So that's one of the more interesting things to watch.
Now, my other question is this. We've seen Garcia at 140 pounds because he defeated Adrian Broner, Sergey Lipinets before moving back down to 135. He looked good, but he didn't look great. Is that any cause for concern?
I think so, just because, at 126 especially, but 135, he looks like a one-punch kind of guy. And maybe it's just Lipinets is awfully tough. That could be the case too, but it's just not often. It's pretty rare for somebody to carry their punching power from, 3 traditional weight classes. There just aren't very many guys you would find who are big punches at 126 who are also knocking guys out at 147, especially in today's age where, they can put on a lot of weight. And it's already expected that Errol Spence is going to be about, he's going to be a sizable opponent here. He's certainly going to weigh more than Mikey Garcia here. So it is one of those things that I do think will affect him. And I think what it will mean is Mikey Garcia is going to have to be smarter, because he cannot rely on his punching power. And, of course, it wouldn't surprise me if Garcia was able to stun Errol Spence. Again, I don't want to give Errol Spence too much credit in the chin department. I mean, he has looked rock solid so far. He has used his physicality, and he has taken some clean shots. And there's only one time that I can remember him, being rocked, and that was in the Larte fight. If you haven't seen it or you're unaware of that, just go to the Larte fight, and I believe it's right before the end of round 7 or the end of round 8, and Spence does get caught in between his punches, and he is hurt. Even Paulie Malignaggi notes it, but he takes it pretty well. He recovers pretty well, and it's just not like he's wobbling around the ring and he needs to take the count. He's just taken good, clean, flush punches so far, and I do think that is an area of concern. I don't think Garcia, he's just not going to have that one-punch power he had at 135, and that's to his detriment. I just think he's going to have to make up for that by being smarter.
All right, we have a question from a listener on Spreaker. It is Kelly from Halifax, Canada. So, Kelly, thanks for the question, which I probably should read the question first. All right, okay, the question's good enough. So, to get up to welterweight, 147, Garcia has brought a new name onto his team, Victor Conte. Kelly wants to know if you think Conte is now on the up and up, and also Kelly wants to know what testing has been used for this fight.
Yeah, so far as I'm aware, I don't think any testing is involved here. I mean, it's not for a WBC title, so there's no clean boxing program involved. Even though the IBF has been, this is for the IBF, title. So even though they've been pretty good about, making sure that guys get title defenses or give title defenses in a timely fashion, unfortunately, they haven't signed up to some sort of, clean boxing program themselves. I mean, the WBA will sometimes work with USADA, and obviously anybody who's paid attention over the past few years. I mean, Thomas Hauser has done a fantastic job at just showing why they're a shit program. I mean, in his last article, he talks about, really the headline says it all. So USADA has done 1,501 tests, and they've caught one person. And that's not even talking about, the controversy with Eric Morales and the cover up with Peter Quillen and Winky Wright, where they just threw away results. The unfortunate thing here is there is no testing. And, Victor Conte is a guy who, to many of us, has seemed like he's turned a new leaf, and he's, trying to expose some of the cheaters, and he's not doing any of the dirty stuff himself. But, of course, I think on the flip side of that, I think two of Victor Conte's guys have been popped. And maybe I'm mistaken, but I think Andre Berto was the first. And then there was a recent one, too, that I'm trying to think of. But Vanes Martirosyan was also on this program, and he was saying that, when you come into the snack, when you want to train in his gym, and use the snack system, Vanes Martirosyan said, and I do trust Vanes because he also exposed Memo Heredia, who tried to give him some testing for about 10-15 grand a few years back. So I do think there is some credibility there. But the snack system, again, what Vanes was saying is that when you want to train in his gym, he draws your blood, sees if there's any doping in there, and if there's not, he'll take you on. Granted, you've got good character, and he'll train you. And so I don't think that Victor Conte is doping his guys. I think if they're doing that, they're probably doing it outside of his knowledge. And again, the reason I say that is because, Victor kind of stands to lose quite a bit. I mean, his credibility and his reputation was already hurt with the Balco lab thing. And so I do think he's doing it the right way now. And I think that's why Mikey Garcia is working with him, because Conte's had some pretty good results so far. I mean, if you look at Danny Jacobs and how he was against Golovkin, yeah, it was kind of messed up that he didn't do he didn't adhere to the IBF's weight standards, and so he basically just said forget that title. Though funny enough, IBF let him fight for it afterwards. But when you look at that fight, and from what I've heard, I believe Victor Conte said that Danny Jacobs was 176 the morning of the Golovkin fight. So Jacobs was probably about 180 going into that fight. And he was still sharp as a tack, right? He was still very quick. Physically, he was strong. So to me, Victor Conte seems to be doing something right in the lab. And again, I don't think it's doping, though. Again, I nobody in my opinion is outside the realm of suspicion unless you're Nonito Donaire or Edwin Rodriguez, two guys who did 365 24/7 testing, random testing by VADA. So I'm not saying, I'm not making a 100% true statement that he is clean, but I do think that, Conte is doing some good, clean stuff in his lab, and that's why Garcia is working with him. Errol Spence and the drugs. I know Victor Conte has brought this up in the past, and talked about Errol Spence's puffy nipples, and how maybe that's the byproduct of doing PEDs. But again, when you're not doing any drug testing, it's impossible to tell. So, again, it very well could be that Spence is doing it and Mikey Garcia is not. If I were to say, again, I'm of the opinion that most top-level guys in most sports are doing it. So, again, if anybody's doing it, Spence is probably doing it. And I think Mikey Garcia is probably clean. I mean, Garcia still looks kind of flabby to me at 147.
Yeah. And hopefully that's not an issue. Final question for me, then we'll make our picks and move on. There was a 2.5 year gap there for Garcia. 2014, I think he was on a great run. He comes back after a contract dispute 2.5 years later, and I know he's 5-0 since, and he's looked good. But for me, I think it's hard to wonder if something was lost there.
Yeah, of course. I think something was lost. I mean, I get that Mikey Garcia was unhappy with his contract with Top Rank, and again, he's not the first guy. Obviously, I mean, there have been plenty of guys. I mean, and don't get it too twisted. Bob Arum is the best promoter in the game, but he's also a middleman, and he's not always looking out for the best interests of his fighters. He's the best at moving these guys, maneuvering them into title shots. I mean, look what he did with Jamal Herring. Herring was a guy who got beat up. He got thrown in too deep against Denis Shefikov, got beat up pretty good, and then he eventually went to Top Rank, and they maneuvered him into a trinket shot at 130 pounds. So you've got to credit what they're doing over there in a sense, because they are the best in the business. But again, Mikey Garcia is not the first, and he won't be the last fighter to have a problem with Top Rank himself. So, that's unfortunate. He decided to sit out his contract, and he lost years of his best in the process. And we don't know what could have happened in that time. We very well may have had the Vasil Lomachenko fight beforehand, right? Uh, I mean, during that time, So, in either way, even if we didn't get a Vasil Lomachenko type fight, you're still missing out on a potential, 2, 5, maybe 6 fights in that time span. And who knows what he would have done in the process. So, yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that we missed out. And I do think it affects him a little bit. I mean, when you're not in the ring constantly and you're not fighting, I think it affects your sharpness. He seemed to come back just fine. Jesus, man. But I do think that he has – I'm not saying he's lost something. I'm not saying he's lost anything physically, but he has lost something in terms of legacy.
All right. So who do you like in this fight? I know I read the article, so I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm falling in line here. I mean, a lot of people think that Spence is going to take it, and I've got to favor Spence too. I mean, there is a historical precedent. I mean, there are a lot of lightweights who have moved up to welterweight and been successful. I do think Garcia is a bit better off here because, again, at 126, he was struggling pretty bad physically to make the weight. I mean, even I think it was HBO or Showtime who ran that behind the scenes thing. And he was dry heaving, and he was really having a hard time of it. So to me, Garcia fits in really well as a lightweight. So I don't see him as being too small, compared to some of the other guys of the past. But it just seems as if the size differential is just going to be too much to overcome. The fact that Spence is a southpaw and he's a really good body puncher, I think that plays into his hands as well. And to me, again, I just think that Spence is probably going to feel him out in the early going. Again, that's where you'll get the bright spots for Garcia. But I just think, again, the physicality is just going to be too much. To me, Garcia is a damn good defender. He's a damn good boxer. But I just don't think he's quick enough. He's not the kind of twinkle toes fighter, where he can stick and move and move laterally very quick. He's not that kind of a guy. He's the kind of guy he'll give you some lateral movement. He'll get back in position. He'll set his feet and he'll bang you away with a jab or bang you away with the right hand. He's just not a guy who stays on his toes consistently, and that's where I think I think that's going to be his downfall here. He's just going to be in Spence's wheelhouse too much, and he's going to get broken down and stopped.
All right. I think he's going to be in his wheelhouse too, but I think he's going to get closer in that wheelhouse. I think when I look at this fight, that if Garcia stays at distance or mid-range, I think he gets picked apart, like you said. My question is, can he get closer? I mean, if he can get him and smother him, I think he has a chance to win the fight, even though he may not be the stronger fighter. I think that Mikey Garcia technically is a little bit better. I think Spence is quicker. Everything tells me Spence is going to win this fight, but something in the back of my mind just tells me that I think Mikey Garcia is going to come out. He's going to put pressure on him, and we do not know what happens when Errol Spence gets pressure. Now, I watched Kell Brook fight him even up for about 7 rounds, and then, of course, he got worn down, broken down, and beaten. But I think with Mikey Garcia, I think he is a lot better than Kell Brook. He doesn't have the size of Kell Brook. I know that. I'm just going to err on the side that maybe Errol Spence isn't as great as people say he is. I could be wrong here, but I've been alive for 50 years, and I've seen all kind of guys like this come and go that were supposed to be the next great thing. And more often than not, they don't come and stay. They come and go. Errol Spence could be the real deal. I totally believe he could be the real deal. I'm probably 50-50 on it. And we'll find out tomorrow night. But I do know this. I think Mikey Garcia is a hell of a fighter. I think he's a very smart fighter with a very good corner. And putting that all together, I think this is going to be a close fight. And I think this. I think Errol Spence will win the fight by a little bit and get screwed in the decision.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, maybe you're right. I mean,
hell, they might just call it a draw no matter what happens so they can do it again a few months later.
yeah, who knows if the fight's that good? Well, I mean, if Garcia actually chooses to get close and bang away, you never know. I mean, wouldn't it be interesting? I mean, because I like to evaluate this from all angles, and a lot of us didn't think that Canelo Alvarez would be aggressive against Golovkin, and lo and behold, he was. So imagine if Mikey Garcia chose to be aggressive as well. What if Mikey Garcia chose to be the body puncher? So what if he just comes out
That's what I
aggressively?
expect. I expect him to get close enough to do that, and we've never seen Errol Spence against that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it would be awfully interesting if because Garcia, and this is part of the reason that I'm picking against him is as much as I like Garcia, and I think technically there's no better fighter in the game. I mean, the guy just looks like he was built to be a fighter. I mean, his balance is fantastic. He's always in a position to throw. Technically his punches are flawless. He brings them right back to his guard. I mean, just what you teach a guy in the gym is what Garcia does correctly. I mean, he really is a damn good fighter, and I really like his style. But he's always been a headhunter, and that's been my problem. It's like when he was fighting Adrian Broner. I'm like, I was just thinking to myself the whole way through, like, go to the body a little bit. Stop relying so much on the 1-2, and and sometimes he would mix the left hook in there, but again, it was by and large to the head. But I have to admit that I do find it a really interesting proposition if Mikey Garcia says, you know what, I'm not going to let this guy bully me around. And I do think he could land a straight right hand to the body consistently if he wanted to. I mean, if he chose to really dig the left hook in, because again, he's got shorter reach, he's technically he's better than Errol Spence. If he chose to be in his wheelhouse and really committed to body punching, I would find that probably a really interesting game plan, and one that I think even Spence would find surprising because nobody's expecting it.
And I still think that's what happens, and I think that's why he wins. I think he's going to smother him. And the only thing that worries me with that is this. 90% of the time, if a guy is a headhunter and he doesn't go to the body, no matter what you do, he can train to do that all the time, and he's still going to go right back to being a headhunter when the bullets fly for real. Now, I think Mikey Garcia is better than the ordinary fighter. I think he could possibly pull this off. So I'm going to go with Mikey. And I also think this. I think Mikey and Errol Spence could probably both be heavyweight champion of the world if they were fighting Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, who are now both bitches. Because Tyson Fury today's next fight is supposed to be in June in Las Vegas. It will not be against unbeaten heavyweight contender Oscar Rivas, who I'm not impressed with either, but he's much more dangerous than the names they're talking about. And it's instead, Fury's next opponent is expected to be either Bryant Jennings, who got knocked out by Oscar Rivas. So that tells you, if you want a shot at the man that calls him the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, you got to beat a man that loses to the man that wants to fight him, or Manuel Charr. And Manuel Charr sucks. And if you're listening, I'll fight you tomorrow. Let's see. When we look at this, though, I don't see the excuse not to fight Wilder in a rematch was that they wanted to build the fight up. How do you build the fight up against Bryant Jennings or Manuel Charr?
Dude, it's going to be Charr. If those are the two options, it's going to be Charr.
Everything I've read, the biggest option here is Charr. The second option is, Jennings. And it looks like they're going to put Rivas, who I don't think is a huge threat either, but at least he might be able to hit you and knock you out. And they're going to put Rivas on the undercard. Now, if Charr doesn't want to fight, because he usually doesn't, and they don't sign Jennings to fight, then they will likely go after these names: Robert Helenius, Christian Hammer, or Agat Kabayel.
And so you're going to bring over a bunch of...
What is that? Because didn't Tyson Fury already beat the hell out of Christian Hammer once?
Yeah, I think he stopped him in the 9th round.
Okay, I thought so. And when Tyson Fury stops you, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So, should we just go
Yeah,
ahead and
dude.
crown Anthony Joshua heavyweight champion of the world? And when we get John on, we need to make that announcement so me and him can fight about it.
Might as well, man. Create some drama because Manuel Charr is again the only thing the only stupid angle they have with that fight is
Don't say
I
it.
don't know.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
Say it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Forget it. But Manuel Charr is dude. Again, this was a guy who was starched cold by Maris Breedis. Go watch that knockout. Breedis hit him with an uppercut, and it was lights out, man.
Yeah, but
The dude
Breedis
was
is
gone.
a solid cruiserweight, so you
Right,
got to
no,
give him a shot at the heavyweight title if he gets knocked out by a solid cruiserweight.
Yeah. No. Hey, I mean, I'm glad we're using boxing logic here because it all makes sense. I mean, this shit is up and down and backwards and upwards, and my head's spinning, man, because it doesn't make much sense. I mean, it's got to be Charr because I mean, it would out of those names, I think it has to be Charr because I don't know why you bring over a bunch of Euro dudes, like Hellenius or the Germans. To fight in Vegas to build your American brand, that doesn't make much sense to me. And Manuel Charr is one of those guys as well. And Bryant Jennings to me doesn't make much sense either because even though he is American and he is serviceable, I think Bryant Jennings is a tougher styles match than any of these guys. I mean, yeah, he just lost to Rivas, but to most people he was winning. And the guy has like an 84-inch reach. I mean, he's not a small guy. To me, one of these Euro guys is just probably a softer touch and easier to get by. But I can't they find an American to beat up on? Again, this is going to be in Vegas, so can't they fight an American? I don't know, man. I'm not sure I understand this strategy if those are really the guys to choose from.
Well, and the strategy that DAZN is taking makes this like a certainty that at some point you're either going to be paying twice that $10, if not more, or you're going to have DAZN pay-per-view. And my guess is you're going to get DAZN pay-per-view because this is about supply and demand. And right now they're supplying us with a lot of shitty fights. Yeah, it's only $10 a month, so nobody's going to get mad. My question is Canelo Jacobs the last big fight that DAZN does that's not on pay-per-view?
I don't know, man. It's tough. I mean, a lot of these places don't really release their books, so it's hard to break down their finances. I mean, sometimes
no,
you
wait
can
a second,
get
though.
budgets.
When you're giving $100 million contracts away to a streaming site, I don't see how you make that money back without charging more.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, so where do they make it up? Maybe they think they can milk the Golovkin Alvarez 3 for what it's worth. I don't know, but boxing fans do have to understand that that's the way it works. I mean, this is not you're not going to keep getting fights this cheaply if they don't put on the big fights. And I've heard that DAZN is really helping to dictate where Canelo Alvarez is going in terms of what fights he's taken. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if they're hoping to cash out on Anthony Joshua against. Maybe they thought they could do it against Joshua and Wilder. I don't know. I mean, but again, it's so much. There's just so much gray area with all of this stuff, and it just kind of it's just annoying because as a boxing fan, it's like, can't you just get the damn fights done? Instead, Top Rank wants to take control of this and try to milk it for more money this time and build towards it. And I don't know, man. I'm not into it. I mean, really, just get me the fights. I mean, I don't know if they're like what are any of these guys afraid of? They're maybe that the heavyweight landscape will be barren afterwards. I mean, maybe, but it seems as if there are enough prospects coming through the ranks to keep whoever wins, and I think you would agree that's likely Anthony Joshua, but it seems like there are enough heavyweight prospects coming through the ranks to keep him busy for years to come. I don't know, man.
All right, have at it on this day, Jeremiah.
Yeah, on this day, I'm really excited about this one just because it's my favorite John Ruiz fight, and as everybody knows, John Ruiz is really he's the best heavyweight fighter of the last 25 years. His win over Evander Holyfield is
the sad thing is he's probably in the top 10, Jeremiah.
Man, you ain't lying, man. He probably is. I mean, this was a guy who just, man, his jab and grab style was just really stunk up the joint. And it sucks because I didn't really want to dislike the guy because what was his nickname? The Quiet Man? I mean, he seemed like a respectable character. He wasn't, I mean, it seemed like he really left the shit talking to his trainer. But
what was his trainer's name?
What was it, Norm Stone?
Yeah, Norm Stone. All right.
Yeah, he was a hell of a character. But now, man, his jab and grab style was just awful to watch. And really, I think he may have reverted to that style or adopted that style because of what happened on this day. And David Tua whipped his ass in 19 seconds. And, for anybody who was around at that time, John Ruiz was seen as a good American prospect. I mean, he had good boxing skills. Again, go watch his old fights. I'm talking about pre-Tua. He wasn't doing as much of the grabbing as he did before. And again, I don't know if that left hook that put Ruiz just something clicked from then on out, and he just wanted to reduce the amount of time that he was in danger after that. But man, this was really just a lights out job. I mean, Tua went right after him, and the left hook that he connected with at the end there was just vicious, just vicious.
Yeah, and I think that was the HBO Night of the Young Heavyweights where they had Andrew Galata against Donnell Nicholson. And I think Shannon Briggs fought Daryl Dingaling Wilson, didn't he?
Damn, did he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
Wow.
I can't remember if that was closed circuit TV or HBO. I know it was brought to us by HBO. I think it was closed circuit because I don't think I saw that fight. And that was right after, I live in the middle of Indiana, so we didn't even have cable until like that time. But I'm pretty sure it was closed circuit and HBO showed it like the next week. But, yeah, that's what I remember. Andrew Galata was on it.
Damn, Shannon Briggs versus Darnell Wilson. Hell, I like Darnell, man. He was one of those guys who, I mean, he never beat, he was never going to beat any top-ranked fighter, but he was just one of those natural punchers. He kind of reminded me of, you remember Julian Lederloh?
The light heavyweight. Yeah. He was in a war. Who the hell was he in a war with? Dude ended up getting a fight.
Wasn't it Gonzalez?
Yeah, it was Gonzalez, because I think Gonzalez got a shot against Roy Jones, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, Gonzalez was pretty stereotypical in his style. I mean, he's a work rate kind of guy, and actually he was the Lineal champ for a short bit because he was the guy who ultimately put an end to Darius Michalczewski's reign. And he was a pretty.
You do know Wilson on that night? I'm pretty sure beat Briggs too.
What?
Yeah. Hold on, I'll look it up.
Yeah, you're gonna have to because I remember the Dingling man pretty well. I mean, he spent a lot of time at cruiserweight.
Yeah, he beat him. He knocked out Shannon Briggs in the third round.
Holy crap.
Looking at it right now. Wilson was hurt a few times in the first round. Briggs was cut over the right eye. Briggs was knocked out by a left hook.
Holy crap, dude. I have to find this video footage.
It's actually, if you go to BoxRec and click on the thing, it'll actually show you the YouTube of the knockout.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out because, say what you want of Darnell Wilson. And again, he was a fringe contender type, but he was a serious puncher. I mean, he scored maybe the scariest knockout I've ever seen. Because I remember I was up late, I think it was on Tuesday or Friday Night Fights on ESPN, and he was fighting in Wodo, and I think it was a cruiserweight fight. And it was just kind of sloppy, and Wodo was... I've even posted this on my Facebook page, but and Wodo was stumbling around the ring, and he really looked, in bad shape. And then Wilson threw this left hook that, honestly, I thought killed Wodo. He just fell instantly. You look at the judge's face, and he was like, "What the hell did I just watch?" But Wilson was a bona fide puncher. I remember he fought some heavyweight prospect.
Courage Shabalala is who you're going to bring up. Because that was on the USA Tuesday Night Fights. Is that the one you're thinking of? Because Shabalala went in there, and I think he was undefeated and knocked everybody out that he fought.
No, I'm thinking of. I think he was either Mexican or Puerto Rican. He was 36-0 going into that fight, and I think it was one of Wilson's last fights. But he starts this dude cold too.
A Mexican that was 36-0.
Yeah, I think it was near the end of Wilson's career.
I'm looking at. I don't see a Mexican near 36-0. I don't see a Mexican either.
Hmm.
Hold on. Yeah, I got Courage Shabalala was like 20-0 with 20 knockouts at the time. That was the fight that stood out to me. I don't know. You remember Courage Shabalala?
No.
He was a South African heavyweight who basically ran through everybody. And then he was a guy that they put on like the Tuesday night fights all the time. And early in his career, he was like the just for starters guy, if you know what I mean, because that's how Omar Shika was on there too. He became popular late 90s, early 2000s. But he was knocking everybody out, and he fought a dude by the name of Brian Scott. And Brian Scott was this big fat dude that weighed like 300 pounds, and he knocked Shabalala out without much problem. And then Shabalala came back, and I think he fought Darrell Wilson then. Hold on, let me look. Yeah, he fought Darrell Wilson at the Blue Horizon. And Wilson, I think, got knocked down like 3 or 4 times, but ended up knocking Shabalala out. Because Shabalala looked like Tarzan, but he fought like Jane, if you know what I mean. He looked like the real deal, but he wasn't. Yeah, maybe we ought to have Courage Shabalala on. And I know I'm probably saying his name wrong, but you need to look him up. But yeah, Darrell Wilson was a good fighter.
Yeah, well, no, I was actually mistaken Darrell Wilson for Darnell Wilson because you said Dingling Man. So what the hell, they had the same nickname, or?
I don't know. I don't know who his nickname was.
Okay.
Wait, Darrell Wilson was doing damage. That's a shitty nickname. That's why he failed.
Yeah, no, that's the whole reason why I never became heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have a name like Darrell doing. See, I can't even say it. But, all right. Maybe someday we'll talk about David Tua. But that day's not going to be
let's
today.
bring
oh, man. What?
Yeah, let's bring Wilson on and talk about how much his nickname sucks.
Yeah, and then we'll have Dingaling on, and we can have battle of the nicknames. And Dingaling.
Yeah, well, and we can ask him, how'd you get that nickname? Because.
So you're being dirty. All right, guys. We're going to wrap it up. Are we going to be live after the pay-per-view show tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in if you guys are in.
I'm in. I don't know if John's in, but me and Jeremiah will be here no matter what. We'll just make that Inside Boxing Weekly because Sunday night we will have the NCAA Grueling Truth NCAA Selection Show where we will break down, the NCAA tournament and the brackets. So we'll do that Sunday night, tomorrow night, after the fight, live on thegruelingtruth.net. You can hear us live on Spreaker or the website, so make sure you check us out on one or the other. Also, make sure you go and comment on everything we do, even if it's mean. I don't care, because if it's mean and you already liked it, we'll just hide your comment. Also, make sure you go to the Grueling Truth Facebook page. And we've got a Facebook page just for boxing, too, don't we, Jeremiah?
Yeah, it's the same ad as the Twitter page.
TGTN Boxing. So make sure you check us out there also. So we're going to wrap it up tonight. Now, tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, we are going to have the Sheridan Selection Show, which he'll talk about the college basketball NBA games. And we're going to break down the Spence-Garcia fight, give you a little rundown there. We may have a special guest I'm working on for that, but I mean, I need to call the guy so I can get him on probably at some point so he knows. But make sure tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, you check us out there. But we're going to wrap it up for tonight. I would remind everybody that you hear all of our... And also, check out the writers' predictions. I forgot about that, Jeremiah. You want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, we got 11 people on to make their predictions for the Spence-Garcia fight. And
only 3 were right.
Only three were right. So, so go ahead and take a look at that. I mean, no, it's always cool when I can get some of the guys together and, just they can elaborate their positions. So, and again, it's just a lot of them, some of them accumulate the conventional wisdom and go along with that. But, you have outliers too. So, again, it's good to see the guys get together and just, get their stuff out there.
All right, guys, so we're going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to remind everybody, you can hear us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.